Welcome to Pod Me If You Can TV. Today's film is Two of a Kind. John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John in their only other project together, besides their CD, which they released a couple of years ago. I don't know, I've never heard it, but the video clip does not look good. Okay, Two of a Kind, 1983. God, let me start with that, has been on vacation since 1960 in this film. And it's very much reminded me of Dogma, Kevin Smith's film, where God is missing and, he's gone down to earth kind of thing. Gene Hackman is the voice of God. In 1983, he was a big deal, wasn't he, Lloyd?
Yeah.
So you pretty much have Gene Hackman, deciding whether or not he wants humans to remain on Earth. There's a funny line where he sneezes. I didn't know God could sneeze, but anyway. And then they say, "Bless yourself." He's thinking about having another flood and wiping out everyone in the world. We haven't even got to John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John yet. Still up in heaven. He's going to wipe out everybody. So pretty much there are these four angels, and they are trying to convince him that there's lots of good left in the world. And they choose an average man. They're like, what about that guy? And they choose John Travolta.
Of course.
So the four angels and God are watching John Travolta, and he owes $13,000. He's in debt. He's a failed inventor. He is about to rob a bank when they start watching him, so it's not a good display for humanity. His great invention is fantastic too. It's edible sunglasses, which is really good. There's a couple of inventions, but that's the one that he thought would be the best. Olivia Newton-John is in this scene with him where they're talking about the edible sunglasses. He says, "My invention, check it out." "Sunglasses?" she says. "More than that, they're edible. Check it out." And he goes, "Come on, they're delicious, they're great."
Are they functional sunglasses? Like they actually...
Presumably. And then she takes a bite, and she goes, "Ugh, disgusting, tastes like shit. They're absurd." And he says, "That's the same thing everybody said about the pet rock, and now it's $1 million industry." Terrible. They're little blue... Anyway, it looks like blue candy kind of sunglasses. Anyway, so he robs the bank. She's a teller at the bank, and he needs that $13,600. And it's kind of a Aussie accent for her. She's playing an Aussie who is an aspiring actress, which is exactly what Olivia Newton-John was at this time. However, this whole film feels like a vehicle to portray her music. She sings 4 songs in the film, and the original title of one of the songs, "Twist of Fate," I think was the name of the film, the original title of the film, which was later changed to Two of a Kind. To avoid the flood, essentially these characters have a week to sacrifice everything for each other, which presumably means their lives, though it's not specified. The devil, who's played by Oliver Reed in this film, he's sure he'll win the wager. He is portrayed by a posh, moustached man in a suit and tie, a very kind of cartoony devil, who sings in one scene as well.
So it's kind of like a musical? It has musical elements, the movie?
No, it reminded me more of Dirty Dancing, where suddenly a character will be walking and some big... Patrick Swayze sings in Dirty Dancing. The music will kind of overlap the scene. It'll be so loud and in your face that it feels like a music video, almost.
Sure.
So the four angels, they reminded me of this movie Heart and Souls with Robert Downey Jr., how they kind of follow him around and manipulate situations for him. In Heart and Souls, they take over Robert Downey Jr.'s body, but in this film, they play cab drivers and things like that. The way that they manipulate things, though, this is really interesting, is they literally... We watch a big car chase in one scene, and then they say, "Pause, rewind," and they rewind the whole scene. The audience watches it in rewind, and then they manipulate something so that never happened.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
It's interesting. It does kind of mean you're watching these scenes that you think, "Oh no, they're in jeopardy, they're about to die," whatever. Then they just rewind it. It's like it never happened. It kind of takes away the element of danger about it. But Debbie and Zach, two of a kind in this film. It's not as good as Danny and Sandy, Debbie and Zach. They have a lot of chemistry, if I'm being honest. It's probably because of, it's 5 years after Grease, and they, quite like each other. I'm sure they were friends in the interim. But Travolta's in like crazy good shape here. He's walking around without a shirt on quite a bit. I don't think I've seen Travolta in better shape than I have in this film. And I'm sure it's all the dancing movies and everything like that.
Yeah, there was a sequel to Saturday Night Live, or Fever, where he's just really muscular. You know, it's really interesting.
This is right around that era, you know. Look, it's ultimately, because they're in New York as well, it's a really sort of tourism-y kind of movie, because they kind of go around to all these places. Even though they're supposed to be pretty poor, he's in debt, he's running from these gangsters, but they take horse-drawn carriage rides through Central Park. They go and eat at a New York upscale kind of buffet. You know, you can assume the angels are influencing things for them, but, you know, you got to suspend belief quite a lot in this film. Ernie Hudson, Winston from Ghostbusters, gets a cameo as a detective who, when he's arrested for the bank robbery partway through the film, gets to grill him, and he's only in one scene, but it's nice to see Ernie Hudson doing something other than Ghostbusters as well.
I love Winston.
He's a good guy. Look, the film's climax is pretty weak. It's not a surprise this film was nominated for 5 Razzie Awards. Worst Actor, Actress, Director, Picture, and Screenplay. The movie's soundtrack, however, went platinum, which had 4 Olivia Newton-John songs. As I mentioned, it has Journey, Chicago, that kind of era of music. I'll just mention the very, very end, without spoiling the climax of the film. The film ends on a really cheesy freeze frame of John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, and the final line, Travolta says, "God, this has been a crazy week." You know, you can tell that this is not an amazing film. There's a reason Two of a Kind has disappeared, you know, from most people's memories, I'm guessing. Interesting
How
stuff.
is heaven and hell portrayed in the movie?
Have you ever seen heaven portrayed as clouds and God portrayed as light?
Only in every movie.
Because that is exactly what they went for.
Okay.
And I think it's pretty forgettable. It's you can pretend it's a sequel to Grease and that they're grown up and have grown up problems, but it's not nearly as charming as Grease was. Find more from us at www.podmeifyoucan.com.